The Autódromo Hermanos Rodríguez is a fine circuit with a major problem: bumps. Those bumps caught Ayrton Senna out badly last year and this year. It was a big one, and with concussion, whiplash and a very heavily bruised leg, Ayrton was stretchered away in doubt of starting the race. A major blow for World Championship leader Nigel Mansell's chief opponent. Not that Nigel needed any help, as he repeated his devastating South African form. As at Kyle Army, so in Mexico, Nigel was fastest in both qualifying sessions for 4 main reasons. His consummate skill, a Williams car that rode the bumps far better than the rest thanks to its hydraulic suspension, a semi-automatic gearbox that enabled him to keep both hands on the steering wheel, and a Renault engine that outperformed the opposition. But it wasn't easy.
The last lap I pushed more than 10 tenths. Schumacher, Michael, is going exceedingly well in the Benetton. It's very quick, and I had to pull out all the stops to do the quickest time here today, and I'm very happy with that last lap, very happy.
Nigel, quick comment on the bumps, because we saw you twitching through the S's in that same place where Senna went off.
Yeah, I mean, for me, this car is more or less the same as the passive of this circuit. The bumps are terrible, and you're fighting for control all the time, and I mean, it's not nice feeling because it's an accident waiting to happen all the time.
On Saturday, to general amazement, Ayrton Senna limped in after virtually non-stop physiotherapy with the knowledge that he'd not yet qualified. He did so, 6th on the grid. Last year's winner, Riccardo Patrese, was 2nd fastest, only 1/50th of a second slower than Mansell. But even more outstanding was Germany's Michael Schumacher, 3rd fastest in his Benetton for only his 8th Grand Prix. In fact, Mexico's seen the Benetton team's best ever qualifying, with Martin Brundle 4th on the grid, at last able to exploit his ability in a fine car. Which is more than Gerhard Berger was able to do. At the same place where Senna had gone off, Gerhard lost his McLaren too. And even the dominant Mansell nearly submitted to Mexico's ploughed field surface as he took the notorious Peraltada at some 150 miles an hour. Everyone had their problems, but Ferrari were in such a state with their new car that it hardly seemed worth putting the wheels on, with Alesi 10th on the grid and Ivan Capelli 20th. Both Williams drivers on the front row of the grid, just as they'd been last year. Then the 2 Benetton Fords and the 2 McLarens, with Senna a lowly 6th. The Dallara Ferraris of Leto and Martini sandwiching Gugelmin's Jordan, with Johnny Herbert's Lotus an excellent 12th. 21-year-old Christian Fittipaldi starting 17th for his 2nd Grand Prix, but the Ligiers of Boutsen and Comas in dire handling problem, 22nd and 26th. It's 85 degrees here at the Hermanos Rodríguez Stadium, and on your right you see Nigel Mansell. He was on the left last year. He and Patrese had a terrific drag up to the first corner. Mansell's got away beautifully. Patrese is in 2nd place, and there's a coming together right in the middle of the grid. That's Capelli going off in the Ferrari from 20th place on the grid, and the other one I think was Karl Wendlinger, the Austrian, in the march. But it is Mansell leading, Patrese 2nd. Senna is up into 3rd place from 6th on the grid, and there's another one. That is Johnny Herbert spinning. He's hit somebody, and down goes Johnny Herbert, who started magnificently, but coming up now, about halfway round the first lap, it's Mansell leading, Patrese 2nd, Senna 3rd, Schumacher is in 4th place, it's Berger in 5th position, and Capelli walking in. Poor Ivan Capelli, who failed to finish in the Ferrari in South Africa, has failed almost to get started here in Mexico. Last year he drove for March. This year he's trying to drive for Ferrari, and they've had all sorts of troubles in practice. Ferrari are in complete disarray. Mansell leads, Patrese 2nd.
Yes, and it appeared certainly that Wendlinger got catapulted, it looked like, into the Ferrari there, but...
Well, we had a clear circuit there, but it's Mansell still leading. And now here's a replay of the start. Watch Mansell get away and look for that coming together in the middle of the grid.
Yes, you saw Vendinger there. He seemed to get touched on his left, and then that catapulted him across the grid into the Ferrari. There you see the Ferrari just backing into the wall there. And that was a big mess, and certainly a big pity also for Johnny Herbert getting into a tangle with somebody. We couldn't see who it was at the first corner.
So 2 instant retirements, and we're back with Nigel Mansell, and you can see that Riccardo Patrese is hanging on. Ayrton Senna, and remember that the Brazilian must be in great pain unless the adrenaline is blotting it out, because he came limping into the paddock area yesterday after his colossal crash on Friday. And if Senna lasts this race, I'll be very surprised. It's going to take an awful lot out of it. But meantime, Michael Schumacher is coming up through the field. He's got ahead of Martin Brundle now. It's Schumacher behind Senna. Senna is third, Schumacher is fourth, Martin Brundle is in fifth position. Here's another replay of the start.
Yes, and Vendinger certainly got in a tangle with somebody first, and that spun him into the Ferrari, but I couldn't see it. He was Katayama on his left, and the car just on his right may have just pushed him on the rear wheel. But it's one of those messy shunts at the back of the grid, or middle to the back of the grid, when basically there's really just too much activity.
I think it was Thierry Boutsen who was involved in the Ligier, just missing. But anyway, coming down the straight towards us now, the 2 Williams in the lead. Mansell is first, Patrese is still second, and there seems to be a gap developing. In fact, it's 2.8 seconds now between Nigel Mansell, number 5, red 5. Nigel Mansell, there he is, Williams Renault. Look for the gap between him and Patrese, and now Schumacher is right up with Ayrton Senna. And the toll on the Brazilian stamina will be terrific. He's got Michael Schumacher, the thrusting young 23-year-old German in the Benetton Ford, filling his mirrors large. Fourth position, Schumacher.
Yes, and the problem for Senna, of course, is made much larger by the bumps on this circuit than normal, because on a normal situation you use your legs quite a lot to brace yourself in the car with the big G-forces, and they're propped against the side of the car. But in this situation with these bumps, they're positively being hammered against the side of the monocoque.
Well, we're on lap 3 now, and the race order is, as you can see, Nigel Mansell leading, Patrese is in second position, Williams Renault first and second. There is Ayrton Senna in third position with a developing gap between him and Patrese, white 6, there he is. Now coming down the straight into the very fast right-hander, that's turn 1, they go round that at about 85 miles an hour, and the Mexican circuit here, unlike Kyalami, is... And that's Fittipaldi. Out goes Christian Fittipaldi, the youngest driver in the race, the nephew of the great Emerson Fittipaldi, son of Wilson Fittipaldi, driving there the Minardi Lamborghini. And he was started 17th in the race. He was 10th on the grid if there'd been that positioning after Friday's practice. And Christian Fittipaldi sprints across the circuit. Mansell leads, Patrese second, Senna is in third position, in fourth place, and going extremely well behind Schumacher, it's Martin Brundle. Look, there he is, Martin Brundle, and behind him is Gerhard Berger. So, once again, Berger is being totally outclassed by his teammate Ayrton Senna in the McLaren Honda, notwithstanding the fact that Senna is having a lot of trouble in the cockpit. Heavy padding, and that's Sean Alesi in 7th place in the Ferrari. Mika Hakkinen is 8th.
Yes, a stunning performance by Mika Hakkinen, because he was, although he was up with Herbert in the warm-up, he was well down on the grid to him, and he's come right through in the other Lotus. Again, terrific showing by this young, talented pair as Mansell goes through, and Patrese holding on much better this time, having a much better weekend than he did in South Africa. Although possibly still not up to the form that he showed last year in the first half of the season, particularly here in Mexico, of course, where he won. Senna holding on extremely well in third place. Schumacher, who was very quick in the warm-up this morning while he lasted. He stopped after only 4 laps, and was quickest at the time, and Schumacher beginning to look for a way round 7.
quite incredible young man, Schumacher, as we watch Riccardo Patrese. He is only in his 8th Grand Prix. He's had a 6th place, he's had a 5th place, he's had a 4th position, and right at the moment he is in that 4th place behind Ayrton Senna, pushing very hard indeed in front of his teammate Martin Brundle. Brundle 9 years older than Michael Schumacher, who has shown the way so far in the Mexican Grand Prix here. And Brundle, of course, this is his big chance in the Benetton team this year, and he retired at the very first corner in South Africa, and Schumacher is right up with Senna now.
Yes, Schumacher is just getting a toe. Well, this is looking for Berger. We've got Brundle in the way, so unfortunately we haven't got the grandstand view of whether Schumacher can get alongside Senna into the corner at the end of the straight. And no, Senna, you just saw Senna disappear in the distance there, just ahead of Schumacher. Brundle, this is the better performance in the race from Brundle, and he's managed in qualifying. He was quite comprehensively blown off by Schumacher on Friday and, in fact, yesterday. And Senna, and there is Senna pulling off the circuit. We saw nothing wrong with his car just a moment ago. I wonder if he's decided that he's not going to make the distance in the race, and has decided to chuck in the towel now before he does himself any more injury. If he really thinks he can't make the distance, and that wouldn't surprise me at all, then it's a good idea to stop sooner rather than later.
So up into 3rd position on lap 12 goes Michael Schumacher. Up into 4th place goes Martin Brundle. It's a terrible Mexican Grand Prix meeting for McLaren, with Berger having 3 crashes in practice, Ayrton Senna practically writing himself out of the race with that crash he had in practice, and now he has retired. And it looked to me as though Ayrton Senna had just had enough physically, and who can blame him? So, Patrese coming towards a 2nd. Now look for Michael Schumacher. There he is, 3rd. His teammate Martin Brundle is in 4th place. It is still Berger in 5th position. 6th is Alesi. 7th is Mika Häkkinen in the Lotus. In 8th position is Andrea De Cesaris. 9th is Leto. And in 10th position, it is Gianni Morbidelli in the Minardi Lamborghini.
The only thing is that it does occur to me, of course, is that about Senna, is that if he was going to stop, you'd think he might have gone into the pits, because racing drivers are a sort of relatively lazy breed, and the idea of the walk back normally doesn't appeal, particularly when you've got sore legs.
Now, that looks like a Tyrrell to me. It is a Tyrrell. I can tell from the distinctive livery, and the man who's levering himself through that smoke is Olivier Griard. It's Olivier Griard. There he is, the black helmet, the blue racing overall. So the Tyrrell Ilmore is out. Both the Tyrrell Ilmores retired from the South African Grand Prix with engine problems. That's Griard, and Andrea De Cesaris, who drove De Cesaris actually got going and finished in 4th position in South Africa. So Griard out, but still Mansell leads. Patrese 2nd. Gerhard Berger there is in 5th position, no change. But it looks to me as though Gerhard Berger, the Austrian, is on a charge. He's starting to close on Martin Brundle ahead of him. Martin Brundle, the ex-world sports car champion, a winner at Le Mans for Jaguar, really getting his chance now in the Benetton and making the most of it. 4th place.
And in the meantime, Schumacher has been catching slightly on the 2 Williamses. Patrese is holding Mansell, and Schumacher catching just slightly.
And just let's think about what Senna's retirement means. If Mansell keeps going where he is, if Patrese keeps going where he is, that would be 2 successive firsts, 2 successive seconds for both of them. Maximum points from 2 races for the Williams team. And of course, when this race began, the McLaren team was 2nd in the Constructors' Championship, 10 points behind Williams. We're into lap 15 now. And as they go across the line, it was still Nigel Mansell leading, 2.3 seconds ahead of Riccardo Patrese, who was some 7 seconds ahead of Schumacher. And you can see the battle now as Mansell 1st, Patrese 2nd. You can see the battle developing between Gerhard Berger in the V12 Honda-powered McLaren now right on the tail of Martin Brundle's Benetton Ford. And incidentally, the Benettons have got the very latest Series 6 Ford HB V8 engine with the pneumatically operated valve gear, just like the Renaults. If they're going as well as they're going here at 7,000 feet altitude at Mexico, 2,000 feet higher up than Kyle Army, imagine how well they're going to go when they get into the European races at lower altitude, the Spanish Grand Prix. But it is Riccardo Patrese forcing on, second in South Africa, second here in Mexico, round the Peraltada. That corner has been considerably changed since Ayrton Senna and Bertrand Gachot went off in practice last year. The banking has been flattened and the curvature has been changed, and the result is they go around just a little bit slower. But the drivers are all very critical of this Mexican circuit. It is on an old lake bed, and of course, with Mexico being subject to earthquakes as much as it is, there's very little the organisers can do to prevent the circuit being bumpy. Mansell leads, Patrese second. The most experienced Grand Prix driver of them all, Riccardo Patrese, who is in his 226th race. And here is Ayrton Senna, a replay of the Brazilian with his arm up in the air. It's my guess, just driving out of the race. As far as I can see, there's nothing wrong with the car. That doesn't mean to say there wasn't. And Senna, obviously, more than reluctant to walk back. Who can blame him with his left leg in the state that it's in? Is sitting, watching the points slip away from him if the race continues as it is now. And we're on lap 20 now in this 69-lap race, with Mansell leading Patrese by 3.8 seconds. In third position, it is Schumacher, and this is the excitement of the race. Martin Brundle fourth and Gerhard Berger fifth.
Yes, and Schumacher has chipped that gap down to 6.5 seconds from some nearly 8, but it's been just over 8. Berger now very much attacking Martin Brundle. Of course, this circuit, you get a good run onto the main straight here out of the very fast Peraltada corner at the top of the circuit. But because it's such a quick corner, it's very difficult to be absolutely in position, getting onto it and staying close, because you get a lot of turbulence from the car in front, and that means that your wings, your aerodynamic surfaces don't work as well. And here we've got Berger. Now they're heading for the Peraltada here, and he's got to get as close as he can through it to pick up the toe down the long straight. Now this doesn't look quite close enough to be. He needs to be about half as close again. That's foreshortening a bit as they come out of the corner. Berger is in the toe, but he's going to run out of time to jumping out of the toe as Brundle moves over to block any move down the inside. But Berger's having a look. And not a very serious look there. He wasn't close enough.
Well, now, you watch this, and I'll tell you about another exciting development as you watch Martin Brundle fourth and Gerhard Berger fifth, battling in their Benetton and McLaren cars. Johnny Herbert is scything his way through the field in the Lotus. You remember he had a spin on lap 1, came through in 18th position. He is now up to 12th place in the Lotus Ford, which is very, very much overweight. They've got to do something about that with the new car, and I'm sure they will do. It's some 43 kilograms overweight, and Herbert loathes the Peraltada, and he said he was going to go flat out from the beginning and just go for it as he had in South Africa, where you'll remember he finished in a superb 6th place. Now we're back again with Gerhard Berger coming down to that Peraltada, down into 5th gear. It's 4.7 G here, operating on the drivers, over 160 miles an hour as they go down the double right. The gear up through the gears, up into 6th gear. It's about 190 miles an hour here, underneath the bridge, still accelerating to 200 miles an hour. Now down through the gears, into 3rd position, and Gerhard Berger diving through on the inside, but Martin Brundle slams the door in his face. Well, the Benetton's going superbly.
Yes, because it's holding off the McLaren well on the straight too. The engine certainly, as you said before, is working extremely well, and Berger was closer that time, but still not enough to get inside. And you referred just now, Murray, to Herbert's charge from the back of the grid after that incident on the first lap. Well, in the meantime, his teammate Häkkinen is going very well ahead of him, and he is now in 7th place and climbing all over the back of Alesi's Ferrari. So the two Lotuses going very well indeed.
Lap 22 out of 69, race order. Mansell leads by 3 seconds, Patrese second, Schumacher is in 3rd position. Then this battle between Martin Brundle, Benetton, and Gerhard Berger, McLaren, 4th and 5th. 6th position, but dropping back all the time, is Jean Alesi in the Ferrari. Remember that Capelli is out, 7th is Häkkinen, and 8th is De Cesaris.
And Berger was closer going into the corner there than the previous laps, and you notice also he took a different line into the corner to Brundle, and that was to get into clear air. He went in a little bit lower to get his wings working. Closer, 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 but Brundle quite rightly blocking the entry into the corner, just moving to the inside a little bit. And it seems that Berger just can't quite get close enough into and through the Peraltada to get right into the toe early on the straight. But he's having a look down the inside here. And again, Brundle keeping it extremely cool under pressure. His experience, of course, is enormous. Martin Brundle's been around a long time, and I'm happy to say going better in the race today than he has done in his previous qualifying sessions and race at Kyalami. Of course, that was a bit of a disaster for him with the first lap incident. But he's been saying that he's very happy with the car, and he feels that he has yet to get the best out of it. And this is certainly better than his performances in practice and qualifying on Friday and Saturday.
And they're coming up to lap Andrea Chiesa, the Italian driving in his first Grand Prix. They're both past him. Chiesa in the Fonvital with the Ford HB engine. That's the same type of engine as Martin Brundle is using. And back again down this long straight. Now you see why Mexico is good from a viewing point of view, because they're coming down this long, fast straight into a much slower right-hander where the last of the late breakers can sometimes get through. But Gerhard Berger doesn't, and it's still Mansell leading. 3 seconds now, 3.2 seconds ahead of Patrese second. Schumacher third. This is the battle, the 4th and 5th between Brundle and Berger. Alesi is still in 6th position. 7th is Mika Häkkinen. 8th is De Cesaris. In 9th place it is JJ Leto in the Dallara. In 10th place it's Morbidelli. In 11th position it is still Johnny Herbert, and in 12th place Eric Comas ahead of his teammate, both of them Thierry Boutsen in Ligier's. And then, as Katayama is lapped, last man who is running now is Gabriele Tarquini. We've got 14 drivers effectively left in the race, with some notable retirements, particularly, of course, Ayrton Senna, who will score no World Championship points in Mexico. What a difference to 1991, where Ayrton Senna won the first of 4 races, a maximum of 40 World Championship points, with Mansell on 6 after 4 races. And now Mansell is bidding fair to finish this race with 20 World Championship points, and Ayrton Senna would have a mere 4. But the new cars are going to be coming out soon. The McLaren is possibly the new MP4/7 as you watch Nigel Mansell leading. The new MP47 McLaren may well appear in Brazil. It certainly needs to. And then there's a new Williams coming along later in the season, and a whole clutch of new cars for the first European race. And you're watching Alesi now. We're on lap 31, and John Alesi is in 6th position, being chased very hard by Andrea De Cesaris in the Tyrrell Ilmore. They come up and lap Ukyo Katayama, the Japanese driver, in his 2nd Grand Prix.
Background, you can see Häkkinen there behind the lap car, the last of the group, and De Cesaris in perfect position. Now the Ferrari, apart from many other woes, has been spectacularly slow on the straight. I say that relatively, of course, the other cars, and there you saw it. The Tyrrell just walked past the Ferrari on the straight then. De Cesaris had it perfectly positioned as they came out of the quick corner. There's Hackman bringing up the rear, still trying to get past the back marker to join in the battle again.
Well, Peter Collins and Peter Wright of Lotus must be absolutely overjoyed. Both their drivers went superbly in South Africa with a chassis that is basically a 1991. The new Ford engine has made an enormous difference. They've got new shock absorbers, Penske shock absorbers on the Lotus, and in the hands of two of the best young drivers of the day, Mika Häkkinen and Johnny Herbert, they went magnificently in South Africa. They're doing the same here with Mika Häkkinen hanging on behind Jean Alesi, now in 7th position, and Häkkinen about to take Ukyo Katayama in the Larousse and lap him as we ride now with Nigel Mansell, who, as you can see, has made the fastest lap of the race, 1 minute 19.121, which compares with his own 1991 lap record of 1 minute 16.78, and somebody else out. Let's see it back, just peering through the... It's Morbidelli. Morbidelli in the Minardi Lamborghini. Gianni Morbidelli, the Italian ex-Ferrari tester, who's actually been shown up by his young teammate Christian Fittipaldi, both in South Africa and here in Mexico. And it's still Mansell. In fact, Mansell is now pulling away from Riccardo Patrese. He's leading him by some 9 seconds, with Patrese, as Morbidelli walks in, some 11 seconds ahead of Michael Schumacher. Martin Brundle still 4th. Gerhard Berger still in 5th position. Mansell going faster and faster, lap by lap. I wonder if he's going to leave his real effort until the last laps, as he did in South Africa, because his fastest lap in South Africa was on lap 70 out of 72, just to rub things in. And Patrick Head and Frank Williams, respectively the designer and boss of the Williams team, must feel very pleased that they decided to take the technical gamble and use the active suspension this year.
This time there's no doubt that Mansell's having to work for his win, because Patrese is a different man to the one in South Africa, and he just put in the fastest lap about 3 laps ago. He's dropping back, he's unable to lap with the consistency that Mansell's doing, and there is Alesi. Well, the Ferrari's been smoking for a long time, and it stopped, and it's still smoking fairly comprehensively. Alesi's saying, don't cover it in foam, and in fact, Patrese is having a much better race, but as I say, he's dropping slowly back. Mansell made a little bit of ground up in the traffic, a little bit here, a little bit there, but he is definitely having to work hard, and he's lapping, and it can be seen by the consistency with which he's lapping. See, that's another 10th. He's chipped off his previous, well, rather less than a 10th off his previous fastest lap. Patrese in the background and in sight, and this time these two are really racing.
And not only are they racing, Johnny Herbert is continuing to in the Lotus Ford. He is up into 8th place, partly as a result of the disappearance of Jean Alesi. And what a dreadful 1992 it's turning out for Ferrari, even worse than 1991 so far, notwithstanding the fact that they've got this new, with dramatic aerodynamics, car designed by the aerodynamics by Jean-Claude Migeot. And Harvey Postlethwaite, the British designer who rejoined Ferrari from Sauber, is definitely distancing himself from the new Ferrari, pointing out that it's got nothing to do with him, as indeed it hasn't. And I think there'll be a new Ferrari on the drawing board before very much longer, and it looks as though it's badly needed. As Mansell comes through shortly to complete another lap with Riccardo Patrese, an increasing distance behind him now. Now, look, there's Mansell. Now, look for Patrese as he comes out of the right-hander. Well, we moved on a bit. There he is in the background. And just as Frank Williams and Patrick Head and Adrian Newey, who did the aerodynamics for this superb motor car, must be feeling delighted, although the race is not yet finished, so of course must Renault and Bernard Dudot, their designer, because just as the chassis are a race for the championship between Williams and McLaren, so in power terms is it a race between Renault and Honda, and Renault are tremendously ambitious to beat the Japanese concern. They've done it in South Africa, they're doing it again in Mexico, where with Riccardo Patrese, with Nigel Mansell ahead of us, out of sight.
Yes, Patrese still working away though, because that was a new fastest lap for Patrese at this stage. And it is strange because he only woke up at the end of qualifying yesterday afternoon. His performance on Friday was more like his Kyalami one, but it's good news for everybody that he's now got his act together. For everybody except Nigel Mansell, I have to say, but certainly it's good news for us spectators, because it would be a shame to see just a completely Pyrrhic victory. But Mansell, no doubt, having to work very hard indeed today, and of course this circuit is physically hard. You get a good rest on this long straight, but the bumps more than compensate for that, makes life very uncomfortable indeed. The Mexicans claimed before the circus came to town that they had made some improvements to the circuit, and the unanimous consensus for the drivers is that it is worse.
And as you watch Martin Brundle, now a healthy distance in racing terms ahead of Gerhard Berger, my heart goes out to the Englishman, because only now is he getting a chance to show how good he is, having in the past driven for the Tyrrell team, for the Zaxby team, which certainly wasn't ever going to win a Grand Prix. He drove one race for Williams at the Belgian Grand Prix. Then last year he was in the Brabham, which would have been a good motor car if the wheels had stayed on, but all too often they came off for Martin Brundle and for Mark Blundell, his then teammate, who ought to be in this Grand Prix, incidentally, if talent is anything to go by. But now Martin's got his chance, thanks to the patronage of Tom Walkinshaw and his own talent, and he's grasping it with both hands. Ahead of Gerhard Berger, down the straight. Berger looking for the opportunity to close up, but of course he's too far back to do anything about Brundle at the present moment. And the race order is still Nigel Mansell leading Riccardo Patrese by some 9 seconds. Patrese nearly 17 seconds ahead of Schumacher, who is followed by Martin Brundle, as Brundle goes through and takes Eric Comas and laps him. Comas in the Ligier. Well down, right out of it.
Thank you now, Brundle supporters. That little puff of smoke just now at the end of the straight, that was just a locked front brake. And, not a problem. No, certainly most gratifying to see Martin get his act together in this race, because he's only 9 seconds behind Schumacher at this stage of the race, and that is a big improvement really on his performance in qualifying in South Africa, and his performance in qualifying here, and even in this morning's warm-up. But he seems to have settled well, and maybe getting all these miles under his belt now will be very good for him, get his confidence up. But he's still going to have to be able to jump in the car and go instantly quick if he's going to stay with Schumacher, because of course also for Grand Prix racing that's an essential ingredient. Qualifying is where a lot of the race takes part. If you're in grid position, passing is so difficult at a lot of circuits. This is one of the better ones, one of the easier ones, and see how much difficulty Berger is having trying to get past him. Berger at the moment seems to be taking a rest, and that would be right, but in fact Berger seems to have dropped right back.
Well, in spite of all the money that Ligier have spent, and in spite of the fact that they've got the same type of Renault V10 engine as Williams have, neither Comas nor Boutsen are doing any better than they did in South Africa, primarily due to the fact, and you're seeing now Michael Schumacher close up on well down the field in 9th position and lapped out of the ones at the left. And I remind you that there are only about 14 drivers left in the race now. Now here is Comas. Now watch Schumacher pull out of his slipstream. Schumacher in the V8 Ford-powered Benetton, and Comas on the right in the Renault V10 powered Ligier, and that's his teammate Thierry Boutsen behind him. So Comas is showing the way to Boutsen, but they're both a long way back. No change at the front. It's still Mansell on target for his second successive Grand Prix victory ahead of his teammate Riccardo Patrese, with maximum points for the Williams team if they stay where they are.
Yes, and that will be very personally satisfying to Eric Comas, because he'd also showed the way home to Boutsen in South Africa, and he was the man that they didn't even let sit in the car all winter. From the end of last season, they let Prost do the testing and they let Boutsen do the testing, and that was a pretty terrible way to treat their supposedly #2 driver, but he's in the 2 races so far, he's been marginally the #1 within the team. Schumacher goes on his fairly lonely way for the time being. Very comfortable. He now can't live with the Williamses anymore. He hung on for a bit. They didn't get away. And he's 15.8, you see, seconds there behind Patrese. And he's some 9 or 10 ahead. And in the background you can see Brundle and Berger still in attendance. Brundle's threatening at the moment.
Well over half distance, as you see Riccardo Patrese in second position, 17 seconds behind Nigel Mansell on lap 39 out of 69. So if the Williams stay as regular as they were in South Africa and have been in Mexico, it's another 1-2, a dramatic change from the situation we got used to in 1991 at the beginning of the season when the McLaren was so dominant. And Ayrton Senna still sitting, watching the race rather than walk back, must be thinking very deeply indeed about the pressure as out of the Peraltada to complete another lap goes Patrese, about the pressure that Senna is going to put on the team when he gets back to get that MP4/7, the new car with the new Honda V12 engine, with the semi-automatic gearbox, with the fly-by-wire, as it is called, steering system. And there's a spinner. That is Chiesa. That is Andrea Chiesa, the Italian in the Fonmetal. This is his first Grand Prix. And it looks as though he's not going to finish it because he's stalled and will have to be pushed out of the way and therefore disqualified.
Yes, and not an ideal place to park, really. Almost on the racing line, but he is on the line. Pretty much right in the middle of the track. But now, at last, Mansell can relax a little bit in the lead. There he is. He's now got some 15, 16 seconds lead over his teammate Patrese, and he's had to chip away at that. And he's made the big bites of it in the traffic, but in about the last 5 laps, Mansell has got himself enough breathing space now to take it easy, or relatively easy. Patrese also, I would think, at this stage now, is not making a serious chase. Will be now looking after his equipment, maintaining a good, healthy, comfortable gap over Schumacher.
Out of the Mexican Grand Prix as we ride with the potentially victorious Nigel Mansell have gone Carl Wendlinger, Ivan Capelli, Christian Fittipaldi, Ayrton Senna, Olivier Grial, Stefano Modena, Gianni Morbidelli, John Alesi and Andrea Chiesa. The rest are still running. They're getting quite spread out. The conditions, I remind you, are tremendously demanding here. It's not just the heat of over 85 degrees. It's not just the roaring V8, V10 and V12 engines and the extra heat that they generate behind the drivers. The fact that the drivers are cocooned in 3-layer racing suits, long johns, long sleeve vests, high necks, balaclava helmets, gloves, boots and helmets. It's not all that, it's the G-forces as well, and the appalling bumpiness of this Autódromo Hermanos Rodríguez, named after the Mexican road racing brothers, both of whom were sadly killed. And you can see now that Patrese 9 seconds behind Mansell. Schumacher is separated from Brundle by some 8 seconds, and there's still a tremendous battle going on between Brundle and Gerhard Berger, the Austrian, trying desperately to salvage some meaningful points for McLaren in the World Constructors' Championship. So, with Mansell. Now, watch the way that this active suspension, the hydraulic suspension as opposed to steel springs, works on Mexico's bumps. Remember that Mansell has got the advantage of the semi-automatic gearbox, which means to say that he can keep both hands on the steering wheel and therefore fight the bumps, and Berger is going through. Gerhard Berger goes through and takes Martin Brundle, and Brundle retakes him. Terrific bit of driving by Brundle, because Berger just ran wide on the corner. Well, for just a moment, Gerhard Berger was fourth, but now he's fifth again.
Yes, and that was a marvellous fight back by Brundle there. He managed to push Berger into going, overcooking it a little bit in the first bit of the corner in the S, and that was all he needed to fight back. And he had to be tough around the outside. And that was good stuff. And here we see it again. Now Berger got inside under braking, which I would think Martin will be a little bit upset about. And then Berger slides a little bit wide, and Brundle just gets onto the power, and now forces him across Berger's bows. And that was tremendous, forceful stuff. So, battle very much joined there, and Mansell, in fact, still having to push it hard out front. Patrese under 10 seconds again. Berger not quite close enough this time, and of course Brundle is picking up a toe from the Ligier, and that is Boutsen, Comas in front of him, and this will be the sort of opportunity that Berger is looking for to get close. He'll be hoping that the Ligier will just hold him up a little bit, and Martin at the same time will be very, very anxious indeed. It's anxious moments for a driver in front when leading a long battle like this. Follow the Ligiers onto the straight successfully, he'll be all right, because he'll get the advantage of the slipstream from Boutsen's car. No passing here through the S's. It's long series of windy S's, which is very much a follow my leader situation. No opportunities to dive inside, but Berger's positioning himself well. Right now, and he's got a good position into the peloton. He's going inside in there, and if Berger can stay, we're looking at the wrong car, unfortunately. Side by side at over 150 miles an hour there, and Berger is probably through and clear, because he will now get the tow from Boutsen's car, and he took advantage of the traffic, and that's just what Brundle didn't want. And really, one would have to say that Martin Brundle did not really defend his rear properly there. He could have gone a little bit tighter into the corner, and I think he'll be kicking himself for that, because now Berger has the advantage of having a Ligier between them as well. He's still got Comas to deal with.
And we are on lap 43. You're watching Martin Brundle, who has dropped down to 5th position. There's Gerhard Berger, now 4th ahead of him. Can he make up anything on 3rd position man Michael Schumacher, in his highest position yet in a Grand Prix? This incredible German, as you just saw Andrea De Cesaris's car there, this incredible De Cesaris there is in 6th position in the Tyrrell Ilmore. Now, is he going to finish this time? Andrea across the line to start another lap, with Nigel Mansell on lap 49, 14 seconds now ahead of Riccardo Patrese, who is 13 seconds ahead of Michael Schumacher, who is 10 seconds ahead of 4th position man Gerhard Berger. You're watching the 5th place man Andrea De Cesaris, and up into 6th position now has come Mika Häkkinen. So again, Lotus are in the points, just as they were in South Africa, where Johnny Herbert finished 6th. Mika Häkkinen is in 6th position, with not all that much of the race left. And Andrea De Cesaris certainly deserves his place. He drove better last year for the Jordan team than he had driven in his long career. This is the 9th Grand Prix team, the Tyrrell team, that Andrea De Cesaris has driven for. A man who's had a lot of criticism throughout his career, but and that is Martin Brundle. Oh, what appalling luck. Martin Brundle, who drove so well for so long in 4th position, certainly seems to have a jinx on him, because he was out in South Africa before the end of the first lap, and here he is retiring, and this is lap 49, and Martin Brundle, well, he's coasting into the pits round the Pericarda. That will be no consolation to him at all. And that explains how Andrea De Cesaris moved up to that 5th position, as you now watch Gerhard Berger all by himself in 4th position, 10 seconds behind Michael Schumacher, and he's actually going quicker than the German at the present moment. One Benetton out. Was it with a problem that might affect Michael Schumacher? The German, who finished in 4th position in South Africa, having previously had a 5th and a 6th last year, he's getting better and better all the time. If he finishes in 3rd place here in Mexico, that should mean he wins the Spanish Grand Prix if he goes on with this sort of progression. But anyway, Berger across the line, and here's Mansell. And you see he's broken the mirror, broken the right mirror there. You see a shattered glass. I haven't the remotest idea how that could have happened, because the front of it is protected. So that must mean somehow a stone was thrown up from behind him.
No, I think a stone probably came up at the front of the mirror, the other side of it, and the impact probably cracked the whole thing. But that was well spotted, Murray. Mansell now pretty comfortable, some 13 seconds ahead of Patrese. Won't be in a hurry to deal with the back markers, just it's got plenty of time and space, no need to get excited.
Well, if Nigel Mansell was able to cross anything in the driver's cockpit there, he would have it crossed now, because he is on lap 67 in this 69-lap race. He is leading by 12 seconds from his teammate Riccardo Patrese, in which, just like South Africa, has been a copybook performance. He pulls out and laps the car ahead of him. And as you can see, he's 13 seconds ahead of Patrese, who is 9 seconds ahead of Schumacher, who is 9 seconds ahead of Berger. De Cesaris 5th and Häkkinen in 6th position have been lapped. Both the Lotuses are running, and in the top 7 places, JJ Leto, who failed to finish in South Africa, is in 8th position, and it looks like being another famous victory for Red 5 Nigel Mansell, which would give him a maximum 20 World Championship points and turn the tables on Ayrton Senna compared with the situation after 2 races in 1991. When Senna had 20 points and Mansell had none. This year, Mansell would have 20 points to Senna's 4 from the South African Grand Prix. But the race has yet to finish. And until the driver sees the checkered flag, it isn't. And Mansell's in a potentially difficult situation now as he comes up to let Eric Comas. If he's not seen, if Comas is having a battle, as he is doing with the car in front, and Comas is pulling past Katayama, I think it was. But anyway, Mansell is past both of them. He dives inside Eric Comas. He's lost none of his momentum, the Englishman. And well, magnificent for Williams. Mansell leading, Patrese 2nd, Schumacher 3rd, Berger 4th, and Mansell has lapped everybody up to 4th position, with in 5th place Andrea De Cesaris, in 6th place Mika Häkkinen, in 7th place Johnny Herbert, and in 8th position JJ Leto in the Dallara Ferrari. which has completely outshone the official Ferrari works cars. And Dallara did an awful lot of testing between South Africa and Mexico. It has certainly paid off. But watch the smooth, effortless procession of Nigel Mansell. That Renault V10 has not missed a beat. Look at the way the V10 powered Renault in the Williams chassis pulls away from the two Ligers, which have got the same engine type, but in a very different chassis. And you can see that was JJ Leto, who's just crossed the line with Nigel Mansell bearing down on him. And you can see Capelli's car in the background, you see Grillard's car in the background, and this is the last lap. Lap 69 of the Mexican Grand Prix. It is less now than 2.5 miles between Nigel Mansell and the checkered flag for the second time in 2 races. We're with him now. Unless he has a problem in the closing yards of the race, nothing is going to stop him winning, because he's far enough ahead of Riccardo Patrese to be sure of victory, provided he just keeps going. He's into that last swinging series of 10 bends, each of which is faster than the one that he's just left. And when he clears the last one, it'll be the run down the 180-mile-an-hour straight to the Peraltada, out to the Peraltada to see the checkered flag, to see 10 points, and he's now approaching the Peraltada down the last straight, the speed building. This is the Peraltada. Look for the checkered flag. Mansell is certainly doing so. There it is. Nigel Mansell wins in Mexico. And just as I said in South Africa, there is a delighted Mansell right arm waving out of the cockpit. He's driven an absolutely immaculate race. He took the lead at the start. He's kept it to the end.
Yes, indeed. And Patrese coming across the line now for second place as well. And that is a really marvellous 1-2 performance. Twice on the trot for the Williams team. And really, this car, the Williams Renault, looks quite fantastic. It is, as they say very much in the trade now, it's a package, and it's difficult to see where the car is markedly quicker in any one area, but it's just that little bit quicker everywhere. And look at the Union Jack there, and the fans. That's Frank Williams celebrating 2 1-2s on the trot to open his 1992 account, and really can't do any better than that. And the car is just a little bit better than the others in every department, and it adds up to being a lot better. Well, Mansell had to work hard today. Patrese pressed him, and but a dominant performance from the Williams Renaults and a tremendous lead for Mansell.
So, victory for Nigel Mansell in Mexico and 10 World Championship points. His teammate Riccardo Patrese second, a maximum of 16 for the Williams team. The highest ever finish for Michael Schumacher in his Benetton, with Gerhard Berger behind him in 4th place, the only McLaren to finish, with Senna failing to do so. An excellent 5th place for Andrea de Cesaris in the Tyrrell Ilmor, and another 6th position and another World Championship point for Lotus, this time with Mika Hakkinen at the wheel, as Mansell pulls off the circuit into the pits. You can see that Mansell is happy enough. Often Nigel looks absolutely exhausted. He often has a look of anguish on his face, but it's one of happiness today as he congratulates his teammate Riccardo Patrese, second for the second race in succession. An equally delighted Michael Schumacher waves. 3rd position, the hero of Germany. At last, Germany, who's wanted a Grand Prix driver for so long, has got one. And it's Michael Schumacher. A magnificent finish for Williams, 1st and 2nd. A magnificent finish for Benetton in 3rd position. Gerhard Berger, 4th for McLaren. Andrea de Cesaris, 5th for Tyrrell. Mika Hakkinen, a magnificent 6th for Lotus, with his teammate Johnny Herbert in 7th position. Both of them finished, the Lotuses. 8th, JJ Leto, 9th, Koenigs. Riccardo Patrese, and very well done indeed, Michael Schumacher. JJ Comas was 9th, his teammate Boutsen 10th, Bertrand Gachot in the Larousse was 11th, Ukyo Katayama in the second Larousse was 12th, and Michele Alboreto finished 13th in the footwork with its Mugen engine. But Mexico has been the story of Mansell and Patrese, and you see Mansell now leads the World Championship with a maximum 20 points. His teammate Riccardo Patrese second, Michael Schumacher is third in the World Championship. Goodbye to Mexico, but in 2 weeks it is the Brazilian Grand Prix. Can